Kevin Jennings turned the corner I expected him to turn all offseason with his performance against Syracuse this weekend.
You are Locked On SMU, your daily podcast on the SMU Mustangs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
That's right, it is another edition of Locked On SMU here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Thanks so much for making us a part of your day and making us your first listen of the day. And our episode today is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Coming up on the show today, we'll get to KJ in just a second, but there was something that Rhett Lashley liked that stood out to me from his post-game comments. So we're going to talk about that. Plus, the tight ends are really starting to come along too. And Rhett Lashley spoke on that. It's a Rhett Lashley Tuesday, everybody. Plus, I saw your comments on the newest commit to the 2026 class for the men's basketball team. Andy Enfeld and that crew are doing work. We're going to talk about and give some love to Cam Lomax later on in the show. So I saw you guys' comments on that. We'll touch on that at the end of the show. But let's start with Kevin Jennings. And all offseason, leading up to the beginning of the year, I thought that KJ could turn a corner in terms of his command in the offense. Just the way he operated, the way he moved, and how efficiently the offense could operate under him. And part of why I thought he could turn that corner is because of the continuity between head coach, play caller, and the quarterback. Now, in SMU system, the head coach is the play caller, but you've got an offensive coordinator in Casey Woods, who I think is a rising star. The broadcast team on the ACC network talked about when they met with him, he seems like a head coach in terms of the future. He seems like a future head coach. Now, when it comes to Kevin, what I saw from him against Syracuse and just how in tune with Rhett Lashley and Casey Woods he was, how comfortable he was with the offense, how his body just looked a little bit healthier coming out of the bye week, I thought there is what I thought we were going to see over the offseason. And did I expect him to have 6 incompletions? No. I mean, he threw the ball excellently. And when his receivers actually made plays for him, this offense looks pretty special. It looks pretty special. And by the way, he did it on a day where what SMU does well, which is run the ball, that's what they've done the best through the entirety of the season to that point. He had his best game when the best part of the offense to date didn't have it that day. The running game didn't have it that day. You were missing offensive linemen. You're trying to work in receivers who had been hurt. You're still trying to ramp up a couple of tight ends who have been hobbling a little bit. And that's when he had his best day. And that's when he took command of the offense. 29 of 35, 280-something, 4 touchdowns, and a pick. So took good care of the ball, nearly had as many touchdown throws as incompletions. And the offense moved down the field. And the offense did something in this game that they need to try to duplicate in every single highly contested game that they play. Because SMU is not going to be a team, we've talked about this ad nauseum. SMU is not going to be a team that should be in shootouts with everybody. They shouldn't be trying to match touchdown for touchdown, score for score with people. But what they could do, what they should be able to do, is get 5-minute, 6-minute, 7-minute drives and score touchdowns. Even the drives they didn't score on, there's one drive in particular in the second half where they didn't score on. 9 plays, just under 6 minutes taken off the clock. That's a good offense. That's an offense that averaged 5.7 yards per play, so you're staying on schedule ahead of the chains. You're always multidimensional. You never are in an obvious situation where you have to drop back and pass. And the way Kevin put the ball on his receivers and the way he was always a step ahead of Syracuse's defense stood out. There have been games this year. Where KJ has done one thing well. And there's another game where he does another thing well. And then there's another game where he does another thing well. But this game, in terms of preparation, leadership, command, accuracy, distribution. It seemed like it all came together. It just all came together in this game. And it worked. And look, passing the ball is a two-way street because you got to have your receivers making plays. And at the beginning of the game, the receivers weren't really making a play for their quarterback. But here's what Kevin Jennings knows. I just got to get it there. Get it there and give them a chance. And as the game waned, they started making plays. And the offense was humming under the direction of Kevin Jennings. Now, look, I know some of you guys are going to come in the comments and say, well, Kevin Jennings is not a top 10 quarterback in the country. I'm not saying that. I don't think Kevin Jennings is a top 10 quarterback in the country. Not right now. He's not. But he is doing what SMU's offense needs him to do best. And that's how you win games, by the way, because not every team is built the same. SMU right now is a team that needs Kevin Jennings to do that. Matriculate the ball down the field, hit your intermediate windows, occasionally throw a deep ball, and just let these playmakers work. Just let them work, make the right reads, process information, and command the offense, and let's matriculate this bad boy down the field. And then in games that are going to be coming up, they're going to run the ball better. I have reason to believe, and I have good reason to believe, that the way they ran the ball against Syracuse, remember they were missing offensive linemen too, but I have good reason to believe that that was an aberration in terms of the run game. So you're going to get a better running game back. Your receivers are going to get another week healthier. Jordan Hudson is starting to look like he's returning to form after the early season injury. And his processing and his command of the offense is only going to grow and grow and grow. And the bye week served him well. The bye week served him well. If not for his mental, for his health. I mean, if he was still the same percent on that ankle that he was coming out of the TCU game, they don't start the game off with a quarterback run. That doesn't happen. So that dimension of the offense is starting to come back as well. And everything is starting to build on itself. Now, am I saying SMU is going to put up 30 points every game? No. No, I don't think they will. I don't think the offense is built that way. I don't think this team is built that way. And I don't think the rest of the schedule, by the way, is built that way. But if you can control the ball, win the time of possession, score points, move the chains one or two times, not have 3 and outs, and give your defense, especially that front seven, a rest, the complementary football is starting to look like it might start to bloom with this SMU team. And I think it starts with Kevin Jennings having more control of the offense, exerting that control, and then it translating onto the field the way it did on Saturday. And to me, he kind of put it all together. And he finally looked like, in conjunction with the play calling and the coaching staff and the receivers, and on a day where they didn't run the ball that well, it kind of seemed like that corner was starting to be turned. That what we expected for his progression from the offseason, I think it looked like we finally got a taste of it on Saturday. Speaking of complimentary football, coming up next, Rhett Lashley liked this about SMU's play, especially early on in the game against Syracuse. We'll talk about what the coach had to say on the other side. Keep it here and Locked On SMU. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Every day we make decisions, but on PrizePicks, being right can actually get you paid. Don't miss the excitement of this football season with PrizePicks, where it's good to be right. Playing PrizePicks is a lot of fun. It's a fun, simple way to add more excitement to football. You just pick more or less on player projections, like Josh Allen's passing yards or Saquon Barkley rushing for a touchdown. You just do that, and you're in. Just right then and there. It's quick. You can set your lineup in under a minute. I've done this so many times. And my favorite part, how about this? PrizePicks just added stacks. So if I want to ride with a player, I can select their passing yards, rushing yards, and touchdowns all in the same lineup. And the new injury reboot feature, if your player leaves early and doesn't return, it won't count against you. So download the PrizePicks app today. Why would you not? And use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege for for $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, where it's good to be right. All right, welcome back to the show here on Locked On SMU. Appreciate you guys hanging with me on this Tuesday. Yes, it is Tuesday. My days are long, man. Appreciate you hanging with me. I'm Grayson Singleton. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure that you also find us on the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Okay, Rhett Lashley was a fan of this, and so was I. I was a real big fan of this when I saw that this was part of what he said after the game. And I'm going to give you the quote. This was part of his opening statement to the media following the win. Quote, "Thought our defense was really good early and allowed our offense to really get going. To be up 24-3 at half, eventually 31-3, is a big deal," close quote. And at this point, you're in conference play, and you're going to need the units to work in conjunction. And I mentioned complementary football toward the end of the last segment. And that's just called complementary football. Eventually, everything is going to get going, but sometimes you're going to need one unit to give you a little bit of a mulligan and to give you some time to settle in. And the defense made some plays, forcing a 3 and out, and then Syracuse goes on the drive, goal line stand, no points scored. Syracuse eventually gets the ball back, interception, offense still doesn't get going, but because you got the interception at the 4-yard line, you kick a field goal. So you get points on the board, but the defense carries the early burden, and eventually the offense gets going. 21-point second quarter, you're up 24-3 at half, and 31-3 in the third quarter, and that's all she wrote at that point in time. So really, really astute observation there from Rhett Lashley, because if you can start to play complementary football, it just takes the burden off of the other unit. I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago following the TCU game. And I said because of how bad the secondary was and how you could just get bombed over the top because the secondary couldn't stay in front of anybody, or if there was a catch made, they couldn't tackle anybody. I said that was going to put an immense amount of pressure on the offense and on Kevin Jennings to a point where it should make people uncomfortable. Because we just don't know if this offense is built to be doing that. This isn't Lincoln Riley style Oklahoma offense. This isn't 2019 LSU. Like that's not what we're dealing with here. So you can't expect the offense to go out there and try to score 40 points a night in a shootout with another quarterback. Like, there's just too much pressure for this offense. But if the defense can buy you some time, and yes, it was a backup quarterback, I understand that. But if the defense can buy you some time and then the offense starts to click, now that's complementary football at its finest. And I found it nice that he commended the defense for that, because I think the defense got some confidence this week. I really think they did. And confidence can come whether you're playing a backup quarterback or not, because once you step between those lines, anybody that's played a sport will know this. Once you step between those lines, you don't care if it's the starter or the backup. You're just going out to play and having successful reps and successful drives. It doesn't matter. You tasted success. What you were doing worked. And that's how it feels psychologically. There's going to be a time and a place, and probably that time and the place, by the time this episode comes out, will have already been come and gone. But there is a time and place for, all right, we're going to have to do this better because the competition is going to be better. That absolutely happens. But when you're in between those lines and you're in the helmet and shoulder pads and you're in the stadium and you're tasting success, and what you're doing and what you prepare for all week is actually working, all you get is more confidence and more confidence and more confidence. Because no matter who it's against, you're seeing and experiencing yourself doing it successfully. Period. End of story. That's psychologically how it feels. So now if this defense can get a lot more confidence going into next game, and Rhett Lashley, I'll give you another quote about him in a second, thinks that they found something that works. They think that they found something that works. Guys, SMU's offense being able to do its thing and then the defense being able to get incrementally better, and really that's the secondary, this can start to look better. Am I saying they beat Miami at home? No, I'm not saying that. Am I saying that it results in them going to Clemson and winning? Not necessarily. I'm not assuming that. But it makes you feel a little bit better about this team if you start to fix your glaring weaknesses. This was Rhett Lashlee on the secondary. If I can find this quote, here we go. This was on the move. He was asked about Deuce Harmon moving around. He said, quote, Deuce played nickel. Lamadric's out, and we've been struggling with consistency there anyways. Ouch. That allowed us to put Ahmad Moses back in the deep free safety spot. Talked about that yesterday. I thought Deuce and Kyron Chambers did a really good job there, which kind of settled down the safety picture for us. And then Marcellus Barnes, Smoke, and Speedy doing a great job at corner. I think we kind of fell into probably the best lineups for us in terms of the 5 or 6 guys that play back there. Guys, does that sound like Rhett Lashlee gives a damn about who was playing quarterback for Syracuse? Because to me, it doesn't. To me, that does not sound like Rhett Lashlee gives any sort of a rip who was playing quarterback. We found something that worked. We were successful doing something. So maybe we might run with it and see how it is, when we play a guy like Cade Klubnik or Carson Beck. The play calling is going to get better. The Garrett Rileys of the world, Shannon Dawson has done a phenomenal job at Miami. The competition is going to get better. But when you find something you finally had something positive, you gotta reward it. You gotta instill that confidence. Because in the end, nobody cares. Nobody cares who it was against. And by the way, the secondary looked worse against Texas A&M Commerce. The secondary looked worse against Missouri State. That was the best the secondary looked all season long. And to bring this all full circle, if the secondary can just be competent and make incremental steps, the defense now has the opportunity to play complementary football with the offense. They have the opportunity to say to the offense, hey, if you get 27 points in a game, we might be able to hold it down and get us a dub. That opportunity is available. Will it happen every time? No, you might lose a game 31-27, but it's not going to be an onus upon the offense to score 35 points. Otherwise, we might be in trouble because our defense is a sieve. They found something that worked. They tasted success. That confidence is going to grow, and complementary football could be on the horizon at SMU. All right, coming up next, we'll round out the show with a little bit of basketball recruiting, plus the tight ends are coming along, as noted by the head coach. So stay tuned with us here as we close up the show on Locked On SMU. College football is back, and y'all know I am so excited about the return of college football in America. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, man, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. You guys all know the drill about that. But that's why I personally use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. Man, I pull up the Game Time app, and in just a couple of taps, I see amazing deals. I'm talking about your favorite college football games as low as $25. So what do I love most about the app? Even if I don't actually buy a ticket, I see full, upfront, transparent pricing, so I know what I'm looking at and what I need to plan for. Plus, of course, the seat view feature is awesome. You can see the exact view of the field from your seat before you even buy the ticket. It's faster, cheaper, and way less stressful than any other way I've ever bought tickets, and I've tried plenty of them. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download the Game Time app today. This episode is brought to you by Square, your favorite neighborhood spots run on Square. There are certain businesses that make the neighborhood the neighborhood. These are the places that become an extension of home, whether it's the sports bar dedicated to your team's fan base, the spot with the best wings in town for game day, or that beloved local chain that's been rooted in your community for years. These businesses are what bring people together, and when neighborhood businesses thrive, the whole neighborhood does as well. Man, one of my spots in the Dallas area, check out Lemon Street Tacos, man. I'm a big fan of Mexican food. No matter where I've lived in my life, I've lived in 3 places. I always try to find some good local Mexican food, and that's a place for you guys there. Lemon Street Tacos in Dallas. Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. You can go to square.com/go/lockedoncollege to learn more. But before you do, go support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be happy you did. Square. See you in the neighborhood. All right, let's round out the show talking about a couple more things here on a Tuesday. Grayson Singleton here on Locked On SMU with you. Appreciate you hanging with me. So men's basketball got a commit. And we haven't talked a whole lot of basketball yet, but I did see it in the YouTube comments that a couple of you guys said, hey, can we give some love to the men's basketball program locking down Cam Lomax? And before I get into Cam Lomax's game, it's great to see that SMU is getting a top target in the DFW area. They've done so very well with football with the 2025 class, excuse me, that they are about 2 months away from officially signing the Alger Miles of the world from Kaufman, Zachary Turner from Duncanville, Papungatoa Katoa, Drew Evers from Flower Mound. The list goes on. They've done a good job keeping those prospects in Dallas. And I love that Cam Lomax, who's a McKinney native, right now goes to Faith Family Academy in Dallas. I love that they got this one locked down. Now let's talk about Cam Lomax's game, because I like it. He's 6'1", 165, highly hyper athletic, man. But he also is a modern point guard. And the best teams, I think, these days have a modern point guard who, yes, are team players and can distribute and have a high basketball IQ, but he also can put the ball in the hole. I mean, Florida won the Natty, and their best player is Walter Clayton Jr., a modern point guard, dude who can distribute, but also when it's time to go get a bucket, can get a bucket. So, first of all, just that sort of archetype I love. He's a 2026 kid, so he's still about 16, 17 years old. We could reasonably see him once he gets to SMU as a 6'3" type of guy. So he's got a lot of growth potential, and I think he can grow into a role like that. But when you look at him and you look at the way he plays, with the tight handle, the ability to attack the basket, he's tenacious when attacking the basket, good defender, long arms, by the way, too. And can shoot the ball from anywhere he wants. He reminds me, and his body type is not the same as this guy. His body type's not the same, but the way he plays reminds me of Texas A&M's Wade Taylor. With the way that he can just stop everything, give me the ball, and I'm just going to go get us a bucket. By hook or by crook. Some of you guys might come up with a different comp. That's cool. But when I think of point guards who, yes, they can distribute, but I want to see, can you handle it and break down somebody and go put the ball in the hole? To me, that's what Cam Lomax is. And Wade Taylor has struck me as that kind of a guy as well. Guy who can take a lot of shots from anywhere, but he's going to be really hard to guard because it's going to be hard to stay in front of him. And so you're going to have to, so obviously there's that. So you got to honor that, but also you got to honor a really, really good shot. So I really like this dude. Dude that averaged about 24, 25 a game in his district play last year. I'm interested to see what this year is going to be for him. By the way, I said 2026 guy. 17 years old. He's got one more year of high school basketball, but still could reasonably go to SMU at 6'2", 6'3". Sorry, got my years mixed up. But I would like to see, and I'm going to watch more highlights on him, I would like to see him more as a distributor because he is a point guard at the next level. Because of his height, he is a point guard. So I would like to see him run an offense. Obviously, that doesn't really make the highlight reels of the mixtape and whatnot. So I'd be curious to actually see what that looks like. what his passing looks like, how he gets his teammates involved. That's my next thing that I want to see. But otherwise, man, really, really good pickup for the squad. Really like this kid a lot because quickness with the ball handling, things of that nature translates to the college level. Now, I want to finish with this. The tight ends, and Rhett Lashlee spoke about them as well in his post-game comments. And he basically said that, they've been hobbled a little bit, but he likes how they come on. And what I really liked about the potential of this offense is that you had matchup nightmares. Like Hibner is a matchup problem. Maryland, when he's completely right, is a matchup problem. And you can't really guard them with linebackers, and they're really, really big dudes, so you can't guard them with corners. And seeing those dudes flourish in the offense together, Hibner had a volume of catches, Maryland had a touchdown. Seeing those two thrive together, I think is really going to unlock a lot with this offense and elevate this offensive ceiling. Because a lot of colleges have one. A lot of teams have one guy like that. There aren't many that have two. And the transfer portal era certainly makes that proposition a lot harder to accomplish. So the fact that they got two of those dudes, man, if Maryland continues to get healthier and healthier and healthier, Hibner stays healthy as well, there's so many personnel groupings that you can play around with if you're Rhett Lashlee and Casey Woods. 11 personnel, 12 personnel, 4 wide receivers because you have 4 capable wide receivers. Ymir Knight caught a touchdown. Good to see him. But there's a lot you can do, and there's a lot you can do off of it. And that's the big thing here, is can you remain as unpredictable as possible? Because a lot of teams, you can pick out some tendencies based on the personnel groupings. You can see 12 personnel. All right, they're probably going to run the ball. But what does 12 personnel mean for SMU? Because RJ Maryland is kind of a wide receiver now. Matthew Hibner does a lot of lining up in the slot. And then you've got Stone Eby in there that they can throw in to kind of offset some things, and they can do multiple things when he's in the game. So the more that they can get out of these tight end groupings and the more that they can mix and match and stuff like that, when the better defenses come to play, you can keep them off balance because there's not a tell. Right. A lot of teams have personnel tells. When they are in this, they will do this X% of the time. SMU, I don't think that doesn't apply to them. That does not apply to SMU right now. And I think the more you can stay multidimensional, multifaceted, with multiple bodies on the field, with multiple sets of bodies on the field, your offense just gets that much better. So a lot to really like from what Rhett Lashlee had to say to the media. We'll talk more about it as we go along in the week because there's going to be more and more things that stand out to me. And plus, we'll get a look at Stanford coming up tomorrow. But that'll do it for Locked On SMU here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Make sure you're on the lookout for Fire TV's Locked On's College Football Kickoff, hosted by Locked On Big 12's Drake Toll, two-time AP Coach of the Year Gary Patterson, former college football player Jesse Holley, and your Locked On local experts. So catch Locked On's College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season, only on Fire TV. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Take it easy, everybody.